Folks, we're going to give you the 3-minute warning. We will call it to order in roughly 3 minutes. Good morning. I first of all want to welcome all of you today for being here under a very unusual socially distanced environment, and we appreciate your taking the time to be with us and showing your faith in the process by working with us for having one delegate per district. This is an unusual issue for an unusual year, but we felt that it was very important to make sure that we were able to address the business of our association face-to-face if at all possible. So we appreciate your willingness to be with us, your support, and your understanding as we work through today's activities. It has been a very unusual year. I think we can all take that to the bank, if you will. But I just want to thank all of you for the service that you have given to your communities. We have all faced criticisms and praises over an issue that we have zero control over. And we've handled it, I believe, with a level of dedication and professionalism that is rarely seen in a lot of areas of public service. So I want to thank you for your service in your communities and for what you do for our school children. I also want to take an opportunity to thank our staff. They have taken a year's worth of normal activities, turned it completely upside down, and still made it work without a hitch. Scott and the ladies and gentlemen that work for him have done a fantastic job in making sure that we continue to move forward as an association, and they have supported the desires and the ideas of the board and your districts as well. And so I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank our staff for their dedication, their hard work, and everything they do to make us look good. Thank you very much, Scott. So with all that being said, At this time, I'd like to call our Delegate Assembly and Business Conference for the South Carolina School Board Association to order. I will now ask our President-elect, Cheryl Burgess, if she would please come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you all please stand?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Our next item of business in order is the credentials report. At this time, I'd like to recognize Jamie Devine, the Secretary-Treasurer of the South Carolina School Board Association, to offer today's credentials report. Jamie?
Thank you, President Sailors. At this time, Mr. President, at this time we have a total of 58 delegates from 58 school districts which have registered and are in attendance. The number represents 73% of our 79 member school boards across the state of South Carolina. This percentage exceeds the minimum requirement as stated in the SCSBA Constitution for a quorum to be declared for the conduct of business. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And that all requirements for a quorum as outlined in the South Carolina School Board Association Constitution have been fulfilled, I declare that a quorum is present and that we now are prepared to conduct the business outlined in your proposed agenda. I now call to your attention to our 2020 Delegate Assembly Handbook. You should have had one of those at each of your places. The agenda is listed on page 2. The page numbers are on the document at the bottom corner, if you will. Without objection, we will accept the agenda as printed. Is there any objection? Hearing none, then the agenda for today's session has been approved. The minutes of the 2019 Delegate Assembly begin on page 4 in your handbook. We would like to approve this without objection by your consent. Please take a moment to review those if you haven't already. At this time, the chair would ask if there's any objections to accepting the minutes of our 2019 General Assembly as presented. If there are no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as presented in your handbook. Now we'll move to the next business in order, which is the rules of the Delegate Assembly. At this time, I'd like to call your attention to the proposed rules for the Delegate Assembly, which are on pages 11 through 13. As with the other two items of business previous, we would like to approve these without objection. Are there any objections to the rules as they have been presented to you? Yes, sir. Please go to the microphone, identify yourself and the district you're from, and ask your question.
Melvin Strobel, the Lancaster County School District.
Yes, sir.
Item 9
Item 9
indicates,
on page 13.
On page 13, Mr. Chair, indicates that in order to propose resolutions or constitutional changes from the floor, that the delegate has to have the majority or written verification that the majority of their board is in agreement with the proposed resolution. I'd like to, that part I'd like to have stricken. I think that the delegates here have been voted on by their board and are representing their board. So I'm not certain that's necessary.
Okay, you have a motion on the floor. We need a second for that. Is there anyone in the room willing to second that motion? Say that again, please. The motion is to strike item 9 in its entirety. No, wait a minute, what?
We wanted to strike the majority vote.
Okay, he wants to strike the words majority vote from item 9 on page 13. So the proposed motion is to essentially to remove the entire last sentence. Is that correct?
That's
Thank you.
correct. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And folks, if you're muffled by your mask, I know that's a little bit of a challenge, but we'll do the best we can to understand you. So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I have a second. Would you please stand and give your name? Okay.
Danny Owens, Anderson 3.
Thank you, Danny. Danny seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, it's a simple majority. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as stated, please raise your right hand. All opposed? I'm going to have to ask you to we're going to have a little exercise here. All of those in favor, please stand. Thank you very much. Please be seated. All those against, please stand. The chair believes that the motion passes. So now you have before you the rules of today's meeting as amended. Are there any additional comments or questions or motions pertaining to this particular portion of your handbook? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the rules of the Delegate Assembly as amended, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The chair would like to appoint South Carolina School Board Association staff members Kim Anderson, Melissa Donald, Steve Mann, and Tiffany Richardson to serve as tellers during any voting situations where we may need to take a count. The chair also appoints Helen McFadden as our parliamentarian for today's Delegate Assembly. Helen is an attorney from Kingstree and has worked with us in this capacity on many an occasion, and we appreciate her being with us again today. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Board of Directors. I'd like to recognize these dedicated individuals who represent you at the South Carolina School Board Association level. I want to thank them for their service, their dedication, and their willingness to support our efforts as we have moved through a very challenging year. At this time, I'll ask that as I call your name, would you please stand? We'll start with our President-elect, Cheryl Burgess. Our Secretary-Treasurer, Jamie Devine. The immediate past President, Tony Folk. Board representatives from Region 1, Gail Hughes. From Region 2, Cindy Bond Coates. Region 3, Michael Ramsey. Region 4, Janice Morreale. Region 5 is Kim Johnson, who's not with us today. Region 6, Charles Govan. Region 7, Mary Ulmer. Region 8, Amelia Mackey. Region 9, Daniel Martin. Region 10, Hannah Priester, and she is joining us via video today. Region 11, Tim Rhodes. Region 12, Billy Blackwell. Region 13, Michelle Branning. Region 14, Travis Sloan. Region 15, Lisa Wells. Region 16, Tom Dobbins. and the immediate past president of the National School Board Association, serving as an ex officio member, our very own Beth Branham. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your service. Let's give them a hand. Also included in your delegate book today, you will find the 2019-2020 annual report, which is located on pages 14 through 18, which briefly recaps the results of our association's work in leadership development, policy and legal services, advocacy and legislative services, communications, and our insurance trust. Please be sure to take the time to read the annual report in your Delegate Assembly handbook. It is valuable information as to what we do with the investment that you trust us with. Our association board of directors and staff are committed to providing services to our members, our school board members, and the districts that they serve. This year, those services have looked a little different, as I've mentioned already, through virtual conferences and webinars. We will continue to remain visible. We will continue to remain involved with organizations in our state and the national levels to make sure that your voices are heard. We proudly stand ready to assist each and every one of you in any way we can. And we do again thank you for your support. The chair now calls on the South Carolina School Board Association Secretary Treasurer Jamie Devine to provide us with this year's financial report. Jamie?
Test. Okay, here we go. Thank you. Thank you again, Mr. President. I would like to draw your attention to the statement of financial position on pages 19 and 20 of the Delegate Assembly Handbook. As you review these statements, you will note that the association remains in a sound financial condition and is currently operating in full compliance to the strictest of accounting standards as is possible. The professional accounting firm, the Brittingham Group, LLP, of Columbia, South Carolina, annually audits our books and financial records. A copy of the official audit is available to any school board member for review if requested. This financial report is simply offered for your review and does not require any action by the Delegate Assembly. While not apparent in the statement of financial position, I am proud to again announce that 100% of membership in SCSBA, we have 100% membership in SCSBA of the 79 local school board members in our state. Let's give them a round of applause. This marks the 44th year in a row that we have maintained such a membership position, and is something for which we all should be very proud. Each of you should be complimented for your dedication and commitment, both as a local school board member as well as an active participant in the South Carolina School Boards Association. I will be here after the meeting. If you have any questions, Melissa Donald and Scott Price will be also available to answer any questions. Again, thank you for your time and attention to this matter. Mr. President, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Jamie, for that information and that report. And we also appreciate Melissa and the financial staff for making sure that we manage our money very wisely. Thank you very much. At this time, I'll call on Tony Falk, the chair of our nominating committee, to address this year's committee's recommendations and report. You will find that information on page 21. Tony?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm pleased to give the nominating committee report on behalf of the nominating committee. The nominating committee met on July 20th. I would like to introduce the other members of the committee. When I call your name, please stand. She's not here, but Kim Johnson was on the committee at the time. Daniel Martin, Lexington School District 4. Travis Sloan, Spartanburg 6 School District. Mary Ulmer, Orangeburg School District. Thank y'all for your service. Appreciate your help. I remind members of the Delegate Assembly that our Constitution calls for the President-elect to automatically become the President of the Association. Therefore, Mrs. Cheryl Burgess will assume the position of President upon the conclusion of this Delegate Assembly. Ms. Burgess will not be listed among the individuals on the slate of officers and directors soon to be presented to you. She will give her President's address at the conclusion of the Delegate Assembly. Since we do not have a second day of the sessions for the Legislative Advocacy Conference following the business meeting, we look forward to her remarks and her leadership in the year ahead. The slate of officers and directors is recommended by the nominating committee, and the board of directors is found on page 21 of the 2020 Delegate Assembly Handbook. The slate of officers and directors as presented includes President-elect Jamie Devine, Richland 1 School District, Secretary-Treasurer Gail Hughes, Dorchester District 2, Director of Region 8, Amelia Mackey, Richland School District 2, Director, Region 12, Billy Blackwell, Cherokee School District, and Director, Region 16, Tom Dobbins, Anderson School District 4. This concludes the report of the nominating committee, and on behalf of the committee, I move for adoption of the nominating committee report as presented with the proposed slate of officers and directors on page 21.
Thank you, Tony. According to the South Carolina School Board Association Constitution, any candidate not slated by the committee wishing to run from the floor must have notified the president in writing of their intentions to do so 15 days prior to the delegate assembly. Multiple reminders of this constitutional provision were sent to our membership through the last few months of October through November. We did not receive any nomination packets from anyone wishing to run from the floor this year. Since there were no contested races, the motion before you is to accept the nominating committee report as presented. Since it comes from a committee, it requires no second. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. We will now move to our legislative report. At this time, the legislative report which presents recommended resolutions for the coming year for our association. The chair now calls on South Carolina School Board Association President-elect Cheryl Burgess to give the report of the legislative committee. Cheryl has chaired the legislative committee this year, and her committee have done an outstanding job. Cheryl?
Thank you. I would like to introduce the other members of the 2020 SCSBA Legislative Committee. When I call your name, will you please stand? Gail Hughes, Dorchester School District 2. Kim Johnson, Clarendon School District 2. Amelia Mackey, Richland School District 2. And Michael Ramsey, Berkeley School District. Thank you all for your work. The Legislative Committee met on July 15, 2020, and reviewed proposed new and amended resolutions for 2021. The Board of Directors adopted the committee's report on August the 20th, 2020.
Thank you, Cheryl. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you please turn to page 22 in your Delegate Assembly Handbook so that we may begin this work. This year's Legislative Committee and the South Carolina School Board Association Board of Directors approved changing the setup from having priorities and statements of belief to having both groups combined into current legislative resolutions. In simple terms, we wanted to clean the document up a little bit. You will note that there are 35 current legislative resolutions numbered 1 through 35 as found in Section 1. Section 2, which starts on page 41 and contains one new resolution that has been proposed. Section 3 is on pages 41 and 42 and contains 2 previously adopted resolutions, and number 37 and 38 are being recommended for deletion. As a reminder, proposed new language is underlined, while proposed deleted language is struck through. Also, remember that delegates will only vote on the resolution language, not the rationale statements. Rationale statements are simply an offering for clarification. The South Carolina School Board Association Board of Directors submitted the report. No second is needed. It has been moved by the chairman that the report as presented in the 2020 Delegate Assembly Handbook be adopted, and we are now ready for discussion. In addition to the resolutions submitted by the Legislative Committee, the South Carolina School Board Association Constitution allows this assembly to consider new resolutions submitted from the floor only if 2/3 of the delegates vote in favor of its consideration. We did not receive any notifications from districts stating that they wished to submit any resolutions from the floor for your consideration. Does anyone wish to present a resolution from the floor today? Thank you. On behalf of the Board of Directors and the Legislative Committee, Cheryl Burgess has moved for the adoption of the entire report. The whole report is before you as a main motion. We will now work with that report from the committee, one section at a time. So let's go to Section 1. Section 1 currently contains current legislative resolutions and begins on page 23. This section contains 35 legislative resolutions numbered 1 through 35. Numbers 10, 24, 28, and 30 were previously listed as legislative priorities, but have been moved into the legislative resolution section in alphabetical order. The South Carolina School Board Association Board of Directors recommends that these legislative resolutions be adopted as submitted in your Delegate Assembly Handbook. Is there any discussion? Go to the microphone. Yes, sir. Please, again, please identify yourself.
Mr. Chair, Melvin Strobel, Lancaster County School District. I have a couple of them, but let's begin with resolution number 3.
What page, please?
Page 24. Board training in underachieving school districts. 2 questions. Are there examples of specific courses that the board members would be trained in? I'm not certain I understand what that training would look like. And the second question is, how would this training be paid for?
I'm going to ask the chairman of the committee, Ms. Burgess, to please respond to that. Cheryl, would you like to share the committee's thinking on that, and also ask if staff would like to comment as well?
All right, and I'm going to refer this to Debbie Elmore, since she worked with me legislatively on this committee.
Mr. Strobel, just to make sure I understand your question, is there a specific course that is being offered for this statement? Is that what you're saying? Is that just one?
Do you have, can you provide us with an example of what that would look like that's different than the training that we already have under SCSBA?
It would be specific to the issues in that lower performing school district. So whatever those issues would be determined, then the board would have training on that, because each district is different in terms of why achievement may be low. So our thinking in that is that just like they provide professional development for teachers and staff in the school district of especially in lower performing schools, that's funded by the state, that the school board was left out of that, and we believe that the school board is an integral part of that and should be a part of that training as well.
Okay, and so that training may include either utilizing SCSBA in-house staff or staff external to SCSBA, is that correct?
Potentially.
Okay, and so the follow-up question is, how would that training be paid for?
I don't think it's identified in the position statement. Again, just like the state provides funding for professional development for staff, and we believe that the board is integral, we would obviously advocate that the state provide that training in the same manner that they do for staff.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure it wasn't coming from the district that's underperforming, because oftentimes they're having financial operational issues. And so we just need to make sure that that's a clarification there. Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
My next question is associated with consolidation, if I may proceed, sir.
Please. Is it something you want to amend?
No, sir, it's a question.
Okay, go
It
ahead.
may wind up as an amendment.
Well, if we want to amend it, I would suggest that we pull it for consideration separately from the balance of the block. We would like to vote on all of these as a block, and if there's one that is potentially up for amendment, we can pull it, deal with the balance of the block, and then come back and deal with the one you're talking about.
Thank you, sir. Then let's pull that one, consolidation.
And that is which one?
Number 5.
Number 5 on page 25. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments, or would someone like to pull another one of these resolutions that are listed in group 1? Yes, ma'am. Please come to the microphone and identify yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am Rutha Friesen, Florence School District 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we're looking at number 27 on page 36. School bus safety.
Yes, ma'am.
And all of us are in favor of protecting our students. However, if it is saying that the registered owner of a vehicle, if someone passes, if you allow someone to borrow your vehicle, a family member, and the bus has stopped for an extended...
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Please, I understand your point. Are you wanting to pull this for separate consideration?
Yes, please.
Okay, we'll pull this for separate consideration. Then when we come back to discuss it, you can share your points then. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. So we have 2 of the resolutions in this block that have been asked to be pulled for separate consideration. Are there any others? Okay, hearing none, then I'll ask that we vote on the balance of that block in section 1 as a group, as coming from the recommendation from the committee. All those in favor of that motion as stated, please raise your right hand. All opposed? The motion carries. Now we will go back and address the 2 that were in section 1 that were requested to be removed for separate consideration. Mr. Trobel, would you like to come back to the microphone?
3 and 5.
What now?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Melvin Strobel, Lancaster County School District. Resolution number 5, consolidation. The question I had on that one was, we are asking that each of the districts have an equal voice in the consolidation or deconsolidation question. If both districts do not agree to consolidation, then the recommendation to the state legislature is to not consolidate, or we just left it open. My question is, can we close that loop?
Cheryl, I'll ask the committee to respond to that, if you would, please.
Refer that to Debbie Elmore, our legal.
Melvin, would you please go back to the microphone and restate it one more time, please? And the reason I'm asking that is I don't want to lose something in the translation.
No, sir, you're fine. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ensure nothing is filtered. Again, the last sentence indicates each district shall have equal voice in the consolidation or deconsolidation question. My amendment, unless you can clarify it, Ms. Elmore, is if both districts do not support consolidation, the recommendation to the state legislature is not to consolidate those districts.
Correct. What the statement is saying is that if you have two districts, you hold a referendum, and there needs to be a majority vote in the first district and in the second district. So they both need to have majority votes in both as a voice to say, we support this consolidation. If that does not occur, then it is our position at this point, at least the position of this resolution, therefore the consolidation does not take place.
I asked to amend that so that it's clear, that
Okay.
it reads that way.
Okay, are you, God, just leave it on. Are you in a position to offer a written amendment to that resolution? Okay. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. In the essence of time, I'm going to ask that we take, this is resolution number 5, so while Melvin's writing his amendment, I'm going to ask the young lady from Florence to come back up, and we'll talk about number 27, which is related to school buses.
Rutha Fryston, School District 3.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Wherein this is saying that the registered owner of the vehicle will be charged a civil penalty citation, I would like for it to be amended that it should go to the driver, because allow the registered owner to be responsible for whomever he or she allowed to drive the vehicle, to make sure that driver appears.
Okay. Stay right there for a second. Cheryl, would you or Debbie like to comment on this?
Refer that to Debbie as my governmental relations expert.
So you're just asking to amend it? You want to amend that to say that the driver must be cited?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think that's not a question. I think she just wants to amend it.
If that's the case, if you want to amend by addition, which is adding the citation of driver as well, I'll need you to write the amendment out, if you would, please. Can someone on staff make sure that she's got the paperwork she needs to fulfill that, please?
Okay.
Hang on a minute. What now? Okay, there's an amendment form at your table. So if you would write the respective amendment now, we'll come back to resolution number 5. Just a moment. Yes, ma'am?
I think what my cohort is indicating is we want to strike registered owner and replace that with driver of the vehicle.
Well, I appreciate your willingness to try to clear this up, but she's going to have to write the amendment out and present it as you're doing right now. Okay, now do you have yours ready? Okay, what? Cindy, come to the microphone, please.
Mr. Chair, in reference to number 27, I would ask that before we take up the proposed amendment, we read the rationale. It does list that the driver is already cited by state law.
Thank you for that input. Did the maker of the motion see this? And does that change your... Let's deal with number 5, and then we'll come back to the school buses. Yeah. Oh, clarification. Okay, well, let me get to number 5. Okay, we have an amendment to the resolution number 5 related to consolidation. Melvin, I'm going to do my best to read. Would you go to the microphone and read this? Because I don't want to try to guess your handwriting.
This was that fast handwriting, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to provide further clarification on my handwriting. Obviously, you're not a school teacher. What I'm asking in the amendment is to add to the last paragraph of the resolution the wording, if both affected districts do not agree to consolidation, the recommendation to the state legislature is not to consolidate, period.
Okay. He's already got a second. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, we've had the motion to amend. There has been seconded. So Becky, Becky's putting it up on the screen for us. Okay, does this accurately reflect what you wrote? Okay. We have a question at the microphone. Yes, ma'am.
So it has been.
Would you please identify yourself?
Christina Guads, Beaufort County School Board.
Yes, ma'am.
So it already had a second.
Ma'am? Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
I see this amendment as problematic because now you're assuming by the amendment that there's only 2 districts that are consolidating. And that's not necessarily the case. And the way it's written currently in our booklet allows for a broader interpretation, which I think is better. So I will vote against this.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion on the amendment? You have, yes, sir.
Good point. Is it possible to strike the word both and say if affected districts at this point?
Yes, it is.
Let's do that. Thank you.
Okay. Debbie needs to offer some clarification as well.
And it may not be, I just want to point out one thing, that under the current resolution, the way that we read it and the way that it was presented originally, the referendum would be binding. If you now then say that a recommendation will be given to the General Assembly, then it would not be binding. So just want to make sure I point that out.
Okay, you have a motion before you. All those in favor?
I'm sorry, I'm confused, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
How's a resolution binding? Can Debbie further explain that to me? Because this is simply a resolution. How does a resolution become a binding?
I'm sorry, it's not a resolution, it would be a referendum. If there's a vote, it's a referendum, and then it's binding. In some referendums that you can have, that it would be advisory referendum. So some of them, but the resolution was intended that the referendum or the vote would be a vote and it would be binding. It would not be an advisory, something you would just recommend, but that vote would stand. So if people voted against it, if there's not a majority and people vote against it, then the consolidation just doesn't take place. In this particular one, now we're saying it would be a recommendation, which in essence would not necessarily be binding. It would be just, we recommend. You can do whatever you want with that, but we're just going to make this a recommendation rather than a binding vote. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, that was kind of the clarification I was seeking early on.
I'm sorry.
So that I understand, if we've got multiple districts that vote, let's say we've got 3 districts that vote, 2 of the districts vote for consolidation, the 3rd district says no. And it then goes to the legislature. Are we telling them that only those 2 districts would be consolidated and not the one that voted, or how does that work? I'm not certain I've got that clarification in my mind.
Then the 3 school districts would not be consolidated in one, because under it stands now, every one of those districts would have to vote in majority. Now, does it mean that the 2 school districts then couldn't go to their delegation and say, we want to be combined, and they write us a local law to do that? But as it's the way that it is written now, then no, it would not occur.
Okay.
Because 2 out of 3 voted, oh, just 1, excuse me, I'm sorry, not 2 out of 3. 1 voted no, did not have a majority.
Okay, if what you're saying is true, Ms. Elmore, I withdraw my motion.
It's withdrawn without objection. So move. We will vote on it then as presented. All in favor of Resolution 5 as presented with the amendment withdrawn, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now let's move back to 27, I believe.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Danny
sir.
Owens, Anderson 3. I would request that since we already have legislation in place that meets the criteria set forth by the delegate from Florence 3, drivers are already penalized once detained or identified by law enforcement and held accountable for their actions. Although I agree with the delegate from Florence 3's concern that there could be many scenarios to where someone could be unduly burdened in this process, that I request that the delegate from Florence would consider withdrawing the motion and allow us just to go with a simple yes or no vote.
That will depend on the delegate from Florence. What would you like to do, ma'am?
Well, from what someone said over
Ma'am, you need to speak to the microphone. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
From what someone said over here, the lady, it actually is not saying the driver of the vehicle will be charged. It is saying, however, these penalties only apply to the driver of the vehicle, and the Department of Public Safety has had a difficult time confirming the identity of the driver. But when you go further down, it says that the Senate Bill 199 actually is still charging the registered owner, from my understanding of what this rationale is saying.
Cheryl, would you like to offer some additional comment, or Debbie?
I'm going to defer to Debbie.
Okay.
Can you repeat what you just said? I apologize. I did not have it in front of me when you're speaking. I apologize.
Okay, when we look at the rationale, actually, it is saying, talking about the section of the South Carolina State Code of Laws, and it said that these penalties only apply to the driver of the vehicle, and the Department of Public Safety has had a difficult time confirming the identity of the driver. But when you look down where it says Senate Bill 199, as a section of the code to allow the Department of Public Safety to obtain a civil penalty against the registered owner of a vehicle violating this. So actually, it will look bad against a school board member if you allow someone else to drive your vehicle and they accidentally pass, if there's an extended stop of the school bus and they pass knowing that it's safe, but still it's going to go back to the registered owner. As a school board member, it will look bad upon us.
Yes, ma'am. That has been, and I will tell you that's why this bill is not passed. During the discussions on that bill, the point that you're making has come up. The issue with being able to cite the driver is very, very difficult under legal standards because you have to, it's just a lot of issues with that. You know, it's difficult to cite somebody just based on a picture. You can definitely get the license plate of it, you can get a license plate of the vehicle. So, you know, that's the easiest way to do it. There's not just the difficulty in getting the picture, but it is also, if you do this from my understanding, based on the conversations, you have to use the same camera. It has to be all processed in the same area. I mean, it's a very high hurdle. And I think when the resolution, my understanding, when the resolution was adopted by this body, it was adopted because there were too many people going around buses and there needed to be some action taken to try to stop it. We need to get people to stop going around buses. And I know this came from Greenville. I believe this resolution originated from Greenville. That's all I can.
Okay, because, I mean, who would allow someone to use your car and you don't make sure that they go, you know, to court or whatever? That's just my point. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So did she bring up an amendment? Okay. Lisa?
Yeah, Lisa Wells, Greenville County School Board. To echo what Debbie said, just to offer a little bit of clarification, from last year when we adopted this, there was a lot of conversation about the concern about, you know, it's not you let somebody borrow your car and they do it, but at the time there were some videos that had circulated that showed very dangerous situations that they had caught on camera where cars passed in a way that could have injured children. And so when we had the conversation and we asked the questions, if you are cited, you can go to the magistrate and you can plead your case and say, I was not driving the vehicle. Someone else was driving the vehicle. But at least then, somebody's aware. Somebody's going to be kind of on the hook, and then maybe you don't let that person borrow your car anymore. If they're going to endanger children's lives because they aren't going to stop for a school bus. So I think what we felt like as we discussed it was that there was enough latitude in an extenuating circumstance that if you're cited, you go to the magistrate and you plead your case. And you get that, you deal with that in that way, but at least there's a little more deterrent for these things that happen. So I wish I could cite the specific location where it was, but I think there were actually a couple of videos that we had seen that had circulated prior to last year that kind of initiated us trying to push this bill to get it further down the field. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Melvin Strobel, Lancaster County School District. Mr. Chair and delegates, this particular resolution concerns me greatly. I am a father of 4 kids. I have 4 vehicles registered in my name, in addition to the vehicles my wife and I drive. My kids are in Columbia, South Carolina, Rock Hill, Charleston. The vehicles are away from my home. One, I don't know when my kids allow their friends to drive. Currently, under most laws, the law enforcement officer has the responsibility to prove that that person broke or violated a South Carolina moving violation law, whatever that is. And what we're saying here is it doesn't matter whether or not they prove that the driver was there, the magistrate still under this law has the ability to find the driver, the owner of the vehicle, who may be miles away, but simply because they own that vehicle, they could be held responsible. That bothers me. As such, sir, I move to table this resolution.
We have a motion to table. It requires a second. Who seconded? Would you please go to the microphone and identify yourself for the record? I know you've been there before, but we're recording this, so.
Mr. Chair, can I,
Yeah.
can I make a comment, please?
Sure, go right ahead.
Sure. Clay Sprouse, Greenwood.
Wait a minute, first of all, we have to deal with the table first, which is not debatable. So let's get through that, and then if it doesn't go to the table, then I'll call you to come back. Thank you.
Second, Ruther Friesen, Florence School District 3.
Thank you very much for doing that. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to table, does not provide for debate. All those in favor of tabling this resolution, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion fails. Now we go back to the resolution on the floor. So, sir, you had a question you wanted to bring up.
Clay Sprouse, Greenwood School District 50.
Yes, sir.
I think we're kind of overcomplicating this. It just seems like to me all we're saying is, yes, the driver is responsible first, and if there is a scenario where the owner of the vehicle should be held accountable, then we're asking them to do that. I think under most circumstances, most folks are treated fairly, and so I see no problem with this whatsoever.
Thank you very much, sir. Any other question on the resolution as presented? Hearing none, we'll go for a vote on the resolution 27.
She's never made her motion.
We've never received a written amendment, so we're going with the resolution as it's written in the book. All those in favor of the motion as presented to you in your handbook, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion carries and the resolution is approved. We will now consider the recommended motion in section 2. We have a new resolution that's been presented to us from the Beaufort County School District. So I'm going to ask Debbie Elmore if she would please come forward and give us a brief overview of this one. It is in section 2. It is resolution number 36.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, this is a new resolution that's been proposed by the Beaufort County School Board. I know there's some delegate here today from that board, but it is pretty self-explanatory. It is that we support the expansion of broadband throughout the state.
You have before you in section 2 a new resolution number 36 for your consideration. Again, coming from the committee, it does not require a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as stated, please raise your right hand. All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. We will now move to section 3 of your resolutions. We will be covering resolutions recommended for deletion. They are on pages 41 and 42 of your handbook. This section contains 2 resolutions, number 37 and number 38, which are being recommended for deletion. Each year, the Legislative Committee looks at ways to make some of our resolutions more up to date, and in an effort to do that, this is part of their recommendations. Debbie, would you like to speak to this? Okay. Cheryl? Okay.
I'm good unless there are any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions about the deletion of these 2 resolutions? Yes, sir.
Just for clarification, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, I hate to be redundant, but please, for the record, your name and school district, please.
No problem. Melvin Strobel, Lancaster County School District.
Thank you very much.
For clarification, Mr. Chair, how do we reconsider resolutions that have previously passed? Is this the proper process, or do we have to have a person who voted in affirmative of that resolution bring it back up for reconsideration for deletion?
Are you asking that one of these 2 be brought back for reconsideration?
I'm asking for a parliamentary procedure question.
Okay.
So.
But for clarification.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm asking.
Okay, but what you're asking about are the 2 resolutions that are currently on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You want to speak to that?
The motion to reconsider under Robert requires that you have voted on the prevailing side. And then you must have a second. And then the motion to reconsider must be adopted before you can discuss again the underlying matter.
Yes, I understand that. Let me be clear on my question. We have two resolutions, 37 and 38, on page 41 and 42, that we're asking this assembly to delete. These resolutions were previously passed in another delegate assembly. Should we have someone who voted on the prevailing side of these two resolutions bring them forward for reconsideration of deletion? That is the clarification that I'm seeking from the parliamentarian.
You go right ahead. You're the lawyer, I'm not.
Mr. Strobel, you have a standing committee which is charged with reviewing your resolutions every year, and part of that charge is to rewrite, amend, consider for deletion, consider for addition. You are presented each year with a report moved and seconded by that committee. That committee does not have to go and seek out anybody in order to recommend deletion. That is considered to be part of its consideration of your current resolutions. So no one has to be questioned. No motion to reconsider these has to come before you. The committee has recommended deletion of these for reasons which have been considered by the committee. I'm not sure whether they are reprinted in your rationale there or not, but you simply vote yes or no to accept the committee's recommendation, which is to delete. A yes/no results in a deletion. A yes vote results in a deletion. A no vote does not delete them.
Okay, I'm going to ask Debbie to also come up and offer some additional background related to the rationale for your information.
I'm just going to explain why they're being deleted, why they're being why there's a recommendation to delete. I apologize. Number 37, the charter school resolution is being recommended for deletion because this is current practice. Right now, a charter school can apply to the state charter school district, to Erskine College, which is another statewide authorizer, or it can apply to a local school district. If you read the resolution as it's stated, I mean, it's been changed, and I will say it's been changed. And I think last year or a couple years ago, when it was changed for the final time, I remarked at that point then, that's exactly what's happening now. I mean, the boards still, local boards that want to have a charter school in their district can still do that. And local schools, local charter schools that want to be chartered by the state charter school district can do that, and they can go to Erskine. So in essence, the resolution states what is occurring, so there would be no need to change it. There's no need to change a law because that is what is the practice now. Does that make sense? So that is why it's just a cleanup thing. We don't need this resolution because there's nothing to change. That is how it is practiced now, and that is what we support. The second resolution is the Title I funding formula. When this resolution was adopted, it was adopted during a time period when the U.S. Department of Ed and Congress was looking at changing the funding formula for Title I. The way that the formula was being proposed to change, it would have financially negatively impacted local, rural, smaller school districts. And so this resolution was saying we're not going to support that. When the formula was actually put into place, and since then, obviously this was done in 2011, there has not been that negative impact, and so we are proposing that to delete this resolution because it's again, it's no longer needed. The formula has not negatively impacted the local small rural districts as what was thought when it was being proposed. So thank you.
Okay, we have before us the motion to strike 2 resolutions in Section 3, number 37 and 38. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion before you, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That wasn't nearly as painful as we thought it would be, did it? How many of you have been in the room where we took hours doing this? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everything we've done to get through this part. Let me get to the right place on my pages here, please. We have now essentially concluded all of the required business related to the operations of our association, minus one important exception, and that is the installation of your new officers for the coming year. So I'm going to ask our immediate past president, Tony Folk, to please come forward and take charge of the installation ceremony. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. President. Board members, as I call your name, I would ask you come forward to receive the oath of office, and it's right down here in front. President Cheryl Burgess, Lexington 3 Board. President-elect Jamie Devine, Richland 1 Board. Secretary-Treasurer Gail Hughes, Dorchester 2 Board. Director, Region 8, Amelia Mackey, Richland 2 Board. Region Director 12, Billy Blackwell, Cherokee County School District. And last but not least, Region 16, Tom Dobbins, Anderson School District 4. Okay, will you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? Everyone raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I am duly qualified, according to the Constitution of the Association, to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been elected, and that I will, to the best of my ability, discharge the duties thereof, and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Association. Ladies and gentlemen, give them a hand.
I don't know if y'all noticed, but I just kind of grew a couple of inches because the weight is now off the old shoulders here. I want to thank Tony for doing that and wish everyone up here the very best for this next year. I want to take this opportunity, if I could, to recognize a couple of folks that are outgoing board members. One could not be with us today. Kim Johnson, who has been on our board for some time, was this past November elected to the South Carolina State House of Representatives from her community. And their gain is definitely our loss. She did a fantastic job in serving her community and working on your behalf as a member of this board for a number of years. We're very proud of the fact that she's now a member of the House of Representatives and wish her the very best. And so we will be presenting her with a token of our appreciation when we have the opportunity to do that in the future. Another member of the board that we're going to be missing as after today is Janice Morial. Janice, would you please come forward? Janice has served very faithfully as a member of the Horry County School Board of Trustees for a number of years, and she will be leaving that post at the end of this calendar year. Come up here. And so when doing so, she will be leaving this board. She has been very thoughtful, very dedicated, and a very hardworking member of the board, again, working on your behalf to make sure that the work that we accomplish is valuable. And so Janice, on our behalf, I just want to thank you for your years of service to our board and hope that you will display this proudly at your home or office in the near future. Thank you very much. You want to say something?
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've really enjoyed all of my time serving Horry County and the school board and working with the School Board Association. And I'm not going anywhere. I'll still be fighting for our children, just in a different position. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the next person I'm going to ask to come up is Tony Folk. Tony and I have become very good friends over the last few years, and not having him around is going to be a challenge. We have done an awful lot together, from playing golf to butchering hogs. That's a story all to its own, and we'll tell you that one day over a beverage. But the service that you have provided to us, Tony, has been tremendous. You've been a very dedicated leader, and you have taught a lot of us not only the skills of leadership, but how to be understanding and respectful at the same time. And you've done an outstanding job, and we're going to miss having you around. And thank you for your service.
Thank you again, Chuck. Wow. It's been 12 years from being on the board of directors to the executive board, and I love every bit of it. Made many good friends, and I will still be around. I just got reelected. Just won't be up here with these guys. So thank y'all for everything you've done. We got a great incoming president coming in, and we're on the way up. I think our association is really going good with our executive director and all the staff. Without those, this thing wouldn't work. So with that being said, take care, and I'll still be around. Thanks.
If you folks know me, you know that scripts are not something that I relish. And so forgive me as we get some paper shuffling done around here. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege and honor to welcome a lady that's going to do us all a fantastic job. Please welcome our new president, Cheryl Burgess.
Chuck, on behalf of the association, I would like to present you with this plaque for your year of service and appreciation for being our president. I want to personally thank you and recognize you. You have led us through difficult times, different times, and helped us address all kinds of issues that we couldn't even believe we were going to have to address. But with your leadership, we pull through, and we appreciate you so much. Yes, you can.
I can tell you right now, what we have faced as difficult times could not have been accomplished without the team of officers, staff, and board that you have working on your behalf. I would imagine not a one of us in this room has not been condemned or praised by the issues that we've had to deal with. A year ago, when we sat in a very similar room to this, we had no idea of the turmoil that would be coming our way. And every one of you and those that you're here today representing have done a fantastic job in doing what's best for children, making sure that our students and our teachers are safe, that they're educated in very difficult circumstances. We've had to deal with teachers that are worried, justifiably. We've had to deal with parents that are worried, justifiably. We've had to deal with parents that are just outright angry, some of it justified and some of it not. We've been called names. We have been threatened in some cases because of an issue that we had no control over. Not a one of us in this room or anyone that we represent has lived through what we're living through right now. So we've had to literally build an airplane and fly it at the same time. And you've done a magnificent job of getting that accomplished. You should all be proud of your service. And I appreciate what you do in your communities each and every day. I'll be honest with you, I've lost a lot of my empathy because of this. When people say things to you over the tough decisions you have to make, it hurts. I've lost trust in a lot of people that I thought I could trust because they did not agree with decisions that we make. But I can tell you we can rebuild all that. We can come out of this situation better for the experience. Our districts can grow, our teachers can thrive, and our students can be successful. That's what we need to remember. So when you get that phone call from that one parent that just absolutely doesn't agree with the toughest decisions you've ever had to make, remember that, because tomorrow will be a better day. It has been my honor to serve you. It has been my honor to work with this dedicated board of volunteers, with a highly professional staff that works tirelessly each and every day, because they're the ones that put it all together. I'm the one that makes the phone call and says, I've got an idea. And you hear the groan in the background. I'll call Scott and I'll go, I'm driving. And you hear him go, what now? But we get along very well. And I have a tendency to think when I drive, and I come up with some crazy ideas. Some of them work, some of them don't. But being able to say that I represented you this year has been an honor. And I thank you very much for your time and your dedication. Thank you.
Okay, before I introduce Cheryl Burgess, I would like to take the opportunity to thank Chuck for his year of service and his service over the years to this board. This time last year, who would have thought we were going to face the year that we faced? So that just goes to show you. But, you know, you became president, and we sort of squeaked our way through the annual conference, because right as soon as we got in there, the door shut on doing conferences and the like. And then we all sort of went down the rabbit hole with the pandemic and COVID-19. But I will say this, Chuck dove down the rabbit hole. And what I mean by that is he basically sort of brushed aside the traditional role of president that we have at SCSBA and stepped into sort of a new role where we were doing things virtually. He was part of the Accelerate ED task force that was quickly put together, met countless hours representing you all on that task force to help develop plans for districts to follow for a reentry after the sort of the COVID spring. Also took the lead on the survey that we had for school board members that was really kind of one of the first of its kind that was out there in terms of the survey, and you know, got a lot of attention for it and gave you all a very important voice in this process. And again, just the whole going virtual and doing things virtually and differently. Chuck made himself available in person to moderate and be a part of that process. So thank you, Chuck, for your leadership over this very weird year, for your leadership over the past few years. And again, I'm sure I'll be getting road calls for a long time yet, and I look forward to those. So thank you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you SCSBA's President for 2021, Ms. Cheryl Burgess. In this job, I've had the great honor and opportunity to just meet so many wonderful people through my travels, whether it's statewide, whether it's going nationally, and you just, with the conferences and the workshops that we have, and sometimes just through continuity of contact, you see people over the years. And some people just distinguish themselves as somebody who is going to do something at some point, either at the state and or even at the national level. Cheryl Burgess is one of those people. She's a veteran, 18-year school board member of the Lexington 3 School Board. She's always been actively involved in SCSBA and joined our board of directors in 2010, and in 2016 she was elected secretary and has the distinction actually of being our last secretary, because then we went to the new officer alignment and now we have secretary treasurers. For a while, Jamie was secretary treasurer ad infinitum. Cheryl also is serving her second term as chair on the South Carolina School Boards Insurance Trust, and so we're very pleased to have her as part of that board too. When she does something, I mean, one of the best things that I can think of in terms of describing her is that she's all in. Now, knowing that she's a long-suffering gamecock like I am, maybe I'll change that to say that she gives all of herself instead of saying that she's all in. But she gives all in her community. Of course, she's a member of the school board for 18 years, and you all know that's giving of yourself to your communities. She's been involved in the Rotary Club, the Batesburg-Leesville Chamber of Commerce. She's also involved as a mentor in one of her district's mentoring programs, and she's a member of Faith Lutheran Church. Cheryl has always been very active in her capacity as a board of director member, and subsequently when she entered the officer rotation. She's a fixture at SCSBA events in person or virtual. She was present at every regional meeting that we had this year. This past fall when we were getting back into being face-to-face. So Cheryl leads by example, and she approaches her responsibilities to SCSBA and her responsibilities to you as our membership very seriously. And that includes her service on national committees. Cheryl pays attention to detail. She gives all. In a previous life, Cheryl worked as an optician full-time at Columbia Eye Clinic. She retired and she joined American Airlines and ultimately found that she was spending more time with American Airlines than she was with her family, especially on the weekends, So she didn't stay with American Airlines very long, but she was there long enough to save our bacon when we got stranded in O'Hare Airport after a national conference, and people were lined up as far as the eye could see to get on a flight, and I was pretty much resigned to the fact that we were going to be spending the night in the O'Hare Airport. But she knew how to work for the very, remember I said she pays attention to detail. For the very small amount of time, it was only a few weeks with American Airlines that she went through their training, but she walked away with enough knowledge of that system to where we were on a flight later on and we got back to Columbia, albeit later, but we did make it home with our luggage. So I was very pleased to have her there with me at that time. And again, attention to detail. Cheryl gives all of herself to others as evidenced by her time on the local board, just like so many of you. But how many of us devote 2 weeks a year for what, the past 13 or so years to go to a politically torn third world country to provide much needed eye services? And Cheryl has done that for the past 13 years. Now, for the past 2 years, I believe finally with the pandemic and also with the political strife, her travels to a tiny town in Jamaica, in Haiti, to help provide the needy with eye exams, eyeglasses, surgeries that they need for cataracts and the like, sometimes seeing up to 150 patients a day. And, you know, electricity was sporadic, running water might have been available, but it was never hot. But over the years, she and her team, her medical team, would develop lasting bonds with the people that she worked with down there, and they became to be like family, and so they would keep in touch with them and learn about them and share their daily struggles. And again, that's Cheryl. She gives her all. But there's also the Cheryl that enjoys spending time at Surfside Beach with family and friends. She loves animals, not snakes. She does know a thing or two about bush hogging and driving farm equipment, and there's something about a woman that knows how to drive farm equipment. And she'll keep your dog for you if you ask her. Finally, there's the Cheryl that loves her family. She and her husband, John, live in Leesville, and I guess in what could be called a family unit. Her son, Jeff, is nearby, and her daughter, Julie, and her family, including 3 grandchildren, ages 14, 12, and 8, are just a short scamper away across the dove field that apparently separates their houses there in Leesville. Under normal circumstances, you get an opportunity to meet them today in person, but we're going to have to wait for our annual conference for that. Just some of the new things we're having to do. And with all of that, Cheryl has committed herself, time and energy, to being a member of SCSBA's leadership team, and in turn, giving her all to the association and to you, our membership. As we look to the next year, having learned so much in the past 9 months, Cheryl Burgess is uniquely qualified and ready to lead the South Carolina School Boards Association forward. She gives her all. Ladies and gentlemen, SCSBA President Cheryl Burgess.
Thank you, Scott, for those kind words. That kind of makes you sit back and think about your life. But I do thank Scott, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to stand up here and lead you for the next year. I do appreciate it. I want to thank the SCSBA staff, the board of directors, past and present, who have trained me and groomed me and prepared me to be up here. I want to thank my local school board, Lexington 3, my board chair is here, and my district for supporting me. We have a picture of those up there, for supporting me all the years as a Region 9 director and then as an officer. And finally, my family, who, as Scott said, y'all will meet in February. They have stood by me. They've driven me places. They've cooked supper when I'm not there. They have picked up the slack when I've not been there, and I appreciate that. So, what a year 2020 has been. Last year, when we stood here, President Saylor alerted us to the fact that we felt like the legislators were going to attack school boards. He prepped us for that. So what do we do in January? Wham! We get Senator Jay Lucas's 85-page bill on education reform. We all fretted, we studied, we analyzed, and we lamented over that plan, and we were astounded at how this could affect school boards and public education. We couldn't imagine things getting worse, and yet they did. Our world was rocked in March when our schools were ordered closed by Governor Henry McMaster. We were faced with a whole new slate of issues. Proms, spring sports, band and choral concerts were canceled, and graduation had to receive a completely new look. Overnight, virtual learning became a household term, and we quickly became all familiar with the term COVID-19, hotspots, Google Classrooms, Zoom, and virtual board meetings. At that time, our thoughts were simple. Let's just get through May. Come August, we should be back to normal. Well, so much for normal. Late in the summer, we began preparing for hybrid learning, expanded virtual learning, plexiglass protective shields, half-filled school buses, masks, social distancing, abbreviated fall sports and extracurricular activities, and last but not least, guidelines and mandates from the State Department, legislatures, the governor, and CDC. We wondered if this would ever end. Despite trying to have a positive outlook, we were constantly warned by the media that we could expect huge spikes again in the fall. Well, as we move forward with the school this fall, we discovered we still have more new issues to address. Contact tracing, DHEC reporting, quarantine requirements, 10 days, 14 days, 24 days. And just recently, we have all learned that we may be expected to do rapid COVID testing for our schools. Are we looking at a new normal? We have survived thanks to the dedication and the hard work of each one of you. Never have the words on this button that we received almost a year and a half ago been truer. School board strong. We have plowed through difficult and new situations, and we have shown our state and the nation that we value public education here in South Carolina and that we personally feel responsible for the educational success of every student in our state. I am asking you to continue this fight for public education in 2021. You must continue to be in contact with your legislators at the state, federal, and local level. You must continue to reach out to fellow board members and learn on the experience of your fellow board members. They are the ones who have tried new things. They will tell you what worked for them. They will tell you what didn't and why. And last but not least, reach out to SCSBA for their guidance as well. The decisions that you have to make will not be easy, and we are never going to make 100% of the public happy. I've heard it said that life's good moments usually carry with it some cost, and we have certainly had our cost of COVID-19. We've had school disruptions, we've had inconveniences, we've had public disapproval, we have had concern for the safety of our faculty and our students, and we have also had to deal with ever-changing guidelines and mandates. But you know, as we started back into school and you see kids running around, smiling and laughing and so happy, I'm thinking, wow, here are my good moments. So, thank you all for your time and all that you do for public education. I look forward to working with you this coming year as we continue to improve education in the state of South Carolina. Thank you. Do I still have a script? Oh. See, I'm like Chuck. I've gotten too used to this. I hear you. I want to thank everyone today for your participation in this critical process. The SCSBA Board of Directors will be meeting today immediately following the adjournment of the Delegate Assembly in the Richland Room. We look forward to seeing you at our annual convention in February, face-to-face in Hilton Head. Is there any further business to come before the Delegate Assembly? Seeing none, I declare the 2020 Delegate Assembly of the South Carolina School Boards Association adjourned. Thank you. Oh.